been 58 years and counting since England's men last lifted a major trophy. So, in a bid to finally bring football home, England has looked beyond its own borders, appointing the German coach, Thomas Tuchel. Hello and welcome to Roundtable. I'm Enda Brady. Now, Germany's Thomas Tuchel starts an 18-month contract this week with England, with just one aim, and that's to win next year's FIFA World Cup. Tuchel has tasted success at club level with big teams like Bayern Munich, Paris St Germain and Chelsea. But can he deliver for England in what's often called the impossible job?
The former Bayern Munich boss becomes the third foreign manager to lead England, following Sven-Göran Eriksson and Fabio Capello. Tuchel's managerial journey began in his home country Germany in 2009 with Bundesliga side Mainz. He quickly made an impact, propelling them to heights they'd never seen before. With his stock rising as one of Europe's brightest young coaches, Tuchel moved to Borussia Dortmund, where he won the German Cup. Then the French capital came calling. At Paris St Germain, Tuchel delivered immediate success, clinching the league title in his first season and following it up with a domestic treble. He also led the French heavyweights to their first ever Champions League final, narrowly losing to Bayern Munich. In 2021, Tuchel came to the UK, joining Chelsea mid-season. He won the Champions League within months and earned FIFA Coach of the Year. But his time at Stamford Bridge ended controversially after a rocky start to the following campaign. 7 months later, Tuchel returned to Germany with Bayern Munich, which was far from smooth. He failed to retain the Bundesliga title in his second season, ending the club's 11-year grip on the German top flight. Now, Thomas Tuchel faces his toughest challenge yet as he embarks on one of the most demanding jobs in world football, manager of England.
I'm very excited to start this journey in January with you, with the staff at St George's Park and at Wembley, and of course with a very special and exciting group of players to make our dream come true in America.
Can the German tactician guide a nation starved of glory to their first major trophy since 1966? Or, like so many before him, will it end in heartbreak?
Well, let's meet our guests. I'm delighted to say Lance Santos, who you just heard from, is here with me in the studio. He's TRT World Sports Correspondent. Joining me from Sutton Coldfield in the UK is the former Premier League player Stephen Hunt. And from Manchester in the UK, the sports journalist Sanny Rudravajhala. You're all very welcome to Roundtable. Stephen, I'll come to you first. When it comes to international football, does it matter that he's not English, that you've got a foreigner managing a country he's not from? Does it matter?
To some people, yes, but in my world, no, it doesn't matter. I think you have to buy into the surroundings of the country you're in. I think Thomas Tuchel has done that quite well by his time at Chelsea. So I think he understands the English game and the English culture. I think when I was playing for Ireland, I had Trapattoni, who was Italian, and he come across and he bought into the Irish culture. He figured us out and he went on the journey with us more so than we go on the journey with him. So yes, no is your answer. Thomas Tuchel is just fine managing England. I think it's a good appointment.
Sanny, your take on that? A lot of English people weren't massively happy to see a German come in and take this job.
Yeah, I guess some weren't, but I think also a lot of us kind of feeling a bit ambivalent towards his nationality. It's more whether he'll do the job, because he's been very clear in saying, and the FA have as well, win the World Cup. So we're just like, well, he's the best caliber of manager that's out there. He was linked with every single top job going, notably Manchester United. So I'm not so sure as much on the nationality. It's just whether he can take that final step. So I guess that's where the big rub kind of lies. Of course, if England then play Germany, then that becomes a whole other issue. And thankfully, no one's asked him really if he's going to sing the national anthem. I think actually did get asked that, and he didn't quite give an answer, which would be quite strange if he did, to be honest.
Lance, tell me about Thomas Tuchel. He has had success at club level. Paris St Germain, Chelsea, a Champions League winner, Bayern Munich, a Bundesliga winner. He's a successful guy.
He's a serial winner. He's forensic in his analysis. He's a workaholic. He's absolutely detailed. He plays great football. He falls out with people, though, at different clubs, different levels. And that is good for England because there's no arguments to be had in the transfer market. What you've got in the squad, that's who you got to play. There's not going to be too much direction from above, too much interference. You'd think he was probably unlucky in his departure from Chelsea, dealing with Todd Bowley, bringing in a wild scattergun approach to the transfer market. At PSG, he had to work with some of the biggest names and biggest egos in world football. He is a serial winner. His time at Bayern, yes, he did win a Bundesliga. He also was the first manager in 11 years not to win a Bundesliga title. But I think in English football, in terms of English football, particularly well at Chelsea, inheriting a team that was in a mess mid-table from Frank Lampard, a few months later winning the Champions League. Pretty remarkable. He loves his time in England and he'll be remembered fondly for what he did at Chelsea. And a lot of those players still remember him from England.
And they're in the England squad. Stephen, just on that point, what do you make of Tuchel as a manager, what you've seen of him over the last 4 or 5 seasons?
Yeah, I really like him. You can tell he's very high intense with his work, high intensity work every day. I think international football will suit him. He'll get a period where he gets these players of high intensity 10 days, 14 days, and then he has time to reflect on his situation, how he's managed, and then go again. I think the players will know Harry Kane obviously just had him. They'll know what's coming with him. Harry was keen to point out that they've brought a good vibe to this England squad regarding the last pullouts in the squad, and under no circumstances should that happen again. So Thomas will be keen to get all the players in, keep them together and keep it going, really.
Sanny, this contract that begins this week, it's 18 months. It's very, very clear that the end goal is for England to win the World Cup with Tuchel. He's a short-term project manager with a great track record. Can he deliver a World Cup for England?
Yeah, in fact, he joked in his opening press conference that he needs to work on his long game because his spells at club level have been relatively short. And yeah, this 18-month period, he's kind of got if he doesn't win the World Cup, then as far as like what has been thrown his way, he will have failed. And that's a really bold thing that the FA have kind of done here, picking the guy they believe is the most winningest candidate there is out there. You know, we saw when he, as Lance mentioned, with his time at Chelsea, where he came in that club kind of in a bit of a mess under Frank Lampard and winning the Champions League. He can do a lot in quite a short period. And, you know, as an international manager, he'll only have those short camps. He'll have the next international break in March, and then he'll have a window where there's some friendlies. And then before you know it, it's preparing for World Cup qualifiers. And if they get there, he's got a 3-week camp or so. And in that time, he's got to turn it all around. But he is the sort of person, by all accounts, who can do that. And we'll see if he doesn't win the World Cup, whether he'd want to stay, whether the FA would want to keep him. And if he does win the World Cup, then, you know, he'll get the freedom of England. He can do what he like then.
Lance, they call the England manager's job the impossible job. Gareth Southgate actually took a very studious, measured approach to this. And it didn't look impossible at all, did it?
No, what he did for England was he was the perfect ambassador. He brought back a lot of pride to play for the jersey. I think they mentioned that a little bit earlier in the show, talking about how the players wanted to be there. He was quite willing to speak about cultural issues. Remember his open letter during the Euros addressing some of the abhorrent fan behaviour that had taken place. And Gareth Southgate did incredibly well. But you will still have critics that say he should have done better. You know, you still have people that you talk to fans and they're not happy with the 2 finals, right? Those 2 Euros finals. Some describing it as sort of cowardly performances and tactics and not going for those games, not going for the throat. Gareth Southgate took England as far as he can. When you try and compare Thomas Tuchel to Gareth Southgate, in terms of managerial ability, track record, Tuchel is miles and miles ahead.
Stephen, on that point, I mean, Southgate, England manager for 7 years, 2 major European finals. Tuchel is light years ahead in terms of what he's won and what he's done in the game, isn't he?
Oh, he so isn't, right? So we're, as you know, Enda, we like building people up in England and then knocking them down. And Gareth Southgate, when he come to England, he was at the bottom. The team weren't turning up. They weren't playing for the jersey. He built that back up. And now that they've lost a final and not performed in the last Euros too well, England should win the World Cup, but I don't think they will. I think it's very difficult to win a World Cup, and I think whoever's in the background, whether that's Lee Carsley or he's just gone quietly into the background, Carso has, and maybe he's waiting for his time to come in at a better time. And I think Thomas is under severe pressure, but he's German, he likes pressure, he can handle it, and if there is a guy for the job now, for the England job, then Thomas is certainly the one for it.
And Stephen, as much as people talk about Harry Kane, I always think the England manager should be building a team around Jude Bellingham, have him as the centre of everything and build around Bellingham. Would you agree, or what would you do?
For the sake of Jude Bellingham and his career, I think he's exceptionally talented. He's very hard working and mentally strong. I think he's one of them, if things go wrong, he won't chuck the towel in. When he's on his game, his A game, he's obviously playing for Real Madrid. He's got loads of class. So he will be in the team for the mainstay. But I also think that England have so many talented players, so many ball players in that position. You can't really say he's going to be the long stay either. But I do think he's capable of dropping deeper into an 8 position, and people will find ways of getting him in the team and keeping a strong mentality throughout the team, especially the manager being German as well.
Sanny, run us through the England squad that Tuchel now inherits.
Well, it's quite exciting, really, because of the additional players that under Lee Carsley have managed to come in. So the likes of None Madueke, who plays for Chelsea, who did really well over these last 2 games in the last window, is just one example of a young player who probably wouldn't have started, but he did against the Republic of Ireland and did really well there. So, I mean, there's younger players that mean that there's a depth that perhaps we didn't quite get to see under Gareth Southgate, who kind of picked his 11 and rarely kind of changed it. And as a result, the likes of Cole Palmer, who, completely lit up the Premier League last season to the point where he's winning accolade after accolade, couldn't quite get a starting place when it came to the Euros. And we also saw under Carsley Ollie Watkins get a start ahead of a fit and ready to go Harry Kane. And Watkins did deliver. And that was a player that, as an England fan, we were clamouring for at some point. And when he finally got his chance off the bench, he did deliver and got us into the Euros final. So there's more of a depth there. And what's happened now since Southgate's left and Carsley's come in is because we've had these extra players come in, the younger players, and because of Carsley's connection to the under-21s, someone like Angel Gomez, who was really highly rated at Manchester United, didn't quite make it there, ended up going to France, probably would never have got a look in, would never have been considered for an England cap. And here he is kind of showing what he can do, a totally different sort of player than what England have had before, and maybe would have missed that sort of player in the last tournament where we were overly reliant on moments of brilliance from the likes of Jude Bellingham. So what Thomas Tuchel's going to inherit is a core of players who have got as close as you can get to actually winning. And then added to that, we've got a host of younger players who, under Lee Carsley, have had their opportunity. And, more or less have passed with flying colours. There was a home defeat against Greece where Carsley kind of experimented quite a lot. But overall, there's a great mix there. And all the ingredients are there for Thomas Tuchel. And he's kind of coming in as, the great chef at a Michelin star restaurant. And we're going, here you go. Here are all the best ingredients we have. Now make us a 5-star, 5-course dinner and win us the World Cup, whatever the culinary equivalent of that is.
Lance, I think a lot of managers across Europe and perhaps beyond will look at England and Tuchel and be very envious of the quality that's there.
Absolutely. I think the managers across the world, and particularly in competition, were envious of the squad Gareth Southgate had. It's a fantastic squad. You've got a player like Harry Kane up top, and the dilemma he's going to have, we mentioned all of these players, is fitting them all in the same midfield. If you look, you're talking about Jude Bellingham there. Well, Cole Palmer has been outstanding. Cole Palmer is an incredible player. You've still got Foden, who'll probably be left out given he's not on form at the minute, but still an incredible player. Bukayo Saka on the side. The likes of other players to come back from injury as well. We know that Thomas Tuchel is a big fan of Reece James, who isn't. He's a great player if he can overcome those injuries. Trent Alexander-Arnold too on the right. It is an exceptional side, possibly only a question mark at centre-back, although, Mark Gay's playing pretty good football as well. Colwill to come back in. It is an exceptional side. The envy of European football alongside the French too. So he's got all of the ingredients there, absolutely.
Stephen, what did international football mean to you when you were a player? Pulling on the Ireland jersey, representing your country. I mean, it's a break from club football, but there's huge pride there.
Yeah, massive pride. And I think Gareth Southgate has really installed that to the England team the last 6-7 years. When we were having a conversation there, my mind is flowing. I think to myself, team. Team is so important for England with all them talented players they have. We had talented players in Damien Duff, Robbie Keane, Roy Keane down through the generations where he dragged us through stuff. They're exceptional talents. But England have 10, 12 of these players. And when you get your hard-working players and you mix them in with your individual talented players, you then can become a force. And I think Gareth Southgate has done that. And that's why I think Thomas Tuchel has a difficult job in terms of managing that. But I think there is Phil Foden. You're going through players and I'm going, oh my God, there's 4, 5, 6 number 10s that can play in Jude Bellingham's position. You have to keep all these players happy. You have to engage with them. And for me to play for Ireland, as you know, Enda, I'd run through a brick wall. I wouldn't stop until the game is over. We'd try and win every game, if it's a friendly match or a Nations League match now, as you call it. And it's massive playing for your country, and there's no greater pride. I think Harry Kane touched on that when he mentioned that as well. So I think that has come into the English game. Can they keep it there long term is the plan.
Sanny, talk to me about the media side of things. Tuchel speaks word perfect English. I mean, we've seen big, charismatic Germans like Jurgen Klopp. He's not got that level of charisma, but I think he'll be perfectly capable of handling the English media, won't he?
Yes, I think you're right. I think he will. What we have seen, though, in the past at club level is he can be very honest, perhaps too honest at times, especially post-match as well. And sometimes that can rub some players up the wrong way. You know, if a couple of times when he lost the game when he was manager of Bayern Munich and he was asked, what went wrong? And he was like, oh, I'm not quite sure. And sometimes you don't really want to hear that as a fan. You want those sorts of things to be kept in-house. So he knows he's got his answers. Having said that, because it's international football, because he's got, obviously fewer games and fewer opportunities with the players, that side of things, it maybe we won't get so much of, and perhaps he can keep everyone kind of happy. And, I mentioned he was joking in that first press conference as well. And we can see a very gregarious side of him. Whereas when things start to go a bit wrong, that's where in the past, like at Chelsea, for example, where that candor and where things aren't quite working, he can kind of get a bit prickly with the media. Now, the English media in particular, when it comes to the England job, you mentioned the impossible job, the media is one big reason behind that, and they will not pull any punches whatsoever. So Thomas Tuchel has so much pressure on him to not only perform, but also do that role with the media that Gareth Southgate actually did really, really well. And maybe Tuchel, who can be very emotional as well, is going to have to just manage his own way of how he deals with them. Because if he is, wears his heart on his sleeve, there will be some moments where it'll be great for us in the media. We'll get some great lines from him. We'll get some great clips. It'll go everywhere. But perhaps the players might not feel quite the same. So it's a real tightrope he's got to kind of walk. But yeah, as he starts going into this job, he's in a perfect position. And yeah, everything's kind of looking the way of Thomas Tuchel right now.
And Lance, he's not really making history by being a foreigner managing England, because the late Sven-Göran Eriksson started that trend, broke the mold, and then there was Fabio Capello, the Italian. So in a way, it's all there for him, really, isn't it? I mean, he just needs to deliver success.
Absolutely. And I think the goal is that World Cup. He knows it. The team know it. And I think he's going to pull no punches. If I was an England fan, I'd be very, very excited to see Thomas Tuchel in the dugout. It's going to be a much more animated dugout than the calm demeanour we had of the gentleman Gareth Southgate. He's going to be throwing his hands around at referees, screaming at his players, but you're going to get more exciting style of football. Likes to play three at the back. I'm not sure he'll do that for England just yet. It would be quite fun, though, wouldn't it? And I think you're going to get someone who's on a mission. He's on a mission. He knows he's here for 18 months. He knows he's targeting this World Cup, and he's got to hit the ground running in January. He specifically said to the FA he doesn't want to start in these few months. That's why we saw League given the sort of caretaker role. He wants to start in January, and I think it's going to be a very, very fun time for England to start with, completely different to the Gareth Southgate era.
Stephen, just on that point, how long does it take for a new international manager to kind of bed in philosophy, culture, style, tactics, formation, what he wants from you?
I think any manager these days lives on a week-by-week basis, and every time you have a new game, there's a new rota meetings, defensive meetings, in and out of possession. So I think his first pitch to the players will be all about the team, what Garrett has done over the years to stick together. And then after that, it's straight to work. Take each game as it comes. Everybody is saying they have to win the World Cup. But when you break it down, his job is to win the next game. And that next game will be to lead to the World Cup finals. So I think the modern day manager has so much work to do now, coaching and out of possession, whatever way you want to call it. Have so many meetings. I think I was at the Wales game during the week, and they were telling me the amount of meetings that Craig Bellamy had with his players. It's very high intense now. I'm not so sure I'd be cut out for it, but there's a lot of meetings, there's a lot of structure in place. So really not much time to get into it, but each game comes quickly when you're in it.
And Stephen, as a player, you're with your club manager every day on the training ground, 2 matches a week, and then you go away with your country, and you were working with a man, the legendary Giovanni Trapattoni, who had coached Serie A clubs, had played at the highest level. What was the change like going from club environment to working with Trapattoni?
I think first and foremost, and as you know, once you play for Ireland, you're in a team, you have to buy into the environment. Trapattoni came over and went, do you know what, I'm going to go all out German here. We'll keep it basic, we'll keep our team structure solid, and then after that we'll try and rely on 1 or 2 individuals to win us games. It worked. This England team has many different talents and to play in many different positions. Trapattoni was just good at getting us all together and keeping us in a structure. It was basic. It was 4-4-1-1, 4-4-2. I know the 4-4-2 formation is nearly making a comeback. Everyone's having a little dip at the moment to try and see if it works again. But under Trapattoni, it was fairly basic, but it brought success. So I think under Tuchel, he'll have to bring a fluency in the front 5. Who you play in each game will be important, how you keep him happy. And then he has Anthony Barry, who has real good international experience already with Ireland, with Portugal, I think, as well. I think he's brought him onto his backroom team. So he's got a good guy as well to help him with the England team for sure.
So, Sanny, the last few weeks and months, Tuchel has been quietly building his backroom staff. He's taken a couple of people from Chelsea as well, a data analyst, the goalkeeping coach, Hilario. He's built his team behind the scenes. We know the squad he has at his disposal. Give us your predictions. How do you think England will go in the next year and a half under Tuchel?
Oh, it's so tough, isn't it? Because, as I said, the goal is to win the World Cup. So how will he do? Well, I think with the players he's got, I think, winning games as far as World Cup qualifiers go and the rest of it, that's going to be fine. I think what we need to see as an England fan is we want to see those players kind of gelling in a way that's exciting. Southgate played a very pragmatic sort of style. We want to see more attacking play. We want to see those attacking players. We want to see them getting the most out of them. And that's going to be really on Tuchel. Now, the big question of whether he can win the World Cup, that becomes really, really difficult because there's only one place to go when you get to a final of a Euros, it's win it. There's only one place to go when you get to semi-finals, it's get to a final of a World Cup and then win that. Whether he can do it, it then comes down to the finest of finest margins. But what we have seen under Tuchel in his club work is that in those big moments, he makes the big calls and he wins the big trophies. So everything is there. If he can't do it, I genuinely don't know who can. And then, it'd be that much of an impossible job. You give it to anyone. So I'm going to back Thomas Tuchel and really hope that he can do it.
Lance, this is a very exciting year and a half ahead if you're an English football fan.
Yeah, absolutely. No reason not to be excited. You've got the mix of those incredible players that we've spoken at length about. And now you have a manager that is at the very top of the pecking order in terms of managerial ability. The FA had to act quick on Thomas Tuchel. They tried their luck with Pep Guardiola. They didn't hear positive noises coming out of that. Manchester United, before they got Amorim, were definitely looking at Thomas Tuchel. The FA had to go in early and get their man, and they have a proven winner. They've got to qualify for this World Cup first, and then I think, obviously, as you say, the goal is to win that World Cup, get to a final. I don't think Thomas Tuchel, if he gets to a final of a World Cup and loses, is going to be sacked. I think he'll be kept on. It's dependent on how the team plays. What kind of football are they playing? If he gets to a semi-final and loses on penalties against the Germans, yes, he'll be sacked.
Stephen, tell me, a lot of people feel that international football doesn't matter to Premier League players. Lads like you earning hundreds of thousands of pounds every week. Does international football still matter?
Yeah, of course it does, Enda. You're coming out of your team environment, which is high intensity at the best of times in the Premier League, to a all for one, one for all motto with your country. And it's really enjoyable. I think Gareth has done that well. Listen, each country, everyone's different, right? The Icelandics will go home and chill and they'll play for their country nice and calm. The Irish will go home, they'll have a drink or two, they'll relax, and then they'll go hell for leather to win. The England team turns up, you can't do anything. You're in St George's Park, you're locked away, you have to build an atmosphere within the group there, and then you try and win a World Cup under severe pressure. England is different, I get it, but for me, playing for Ireland was the best experience ever.
And Stephen, your prediction with Tuchel, quarter-final, semi, or even in the final and a win?
I think Lance is right. I think the style of play, the Lee Carsley play 5 attacking players, if he goes and does that and he looks like he's going to score 2 or 3 goals a game and they get beat 4-3 in the semi-final, I think he'll keep his job. If he doesn't and he's pragmatic about it, like Gareth was, trying to win a World Cup or a Euros, then I think he'll find himself under pressure if he doesn't win it. But I do think he'll do okay, and I do also think that he'll build a good team environment within the structure. But by the way, for the media, he's a media's dream, right? He'll tell you what he's feeling, whether that's good or bad. So how that goes down too will be important within the media world in England.
Sanny, we wish you, Stephen and Lance, all the best. A very happy new year to you, and good luck to England, even as an Irishman saying that. Remember, you can see more discussion and debate on our YouTube channel. Search for Roundtable TRT World. But for now, from me and Brady and all of the team here, goodbye and thank you for watching.